This is chapter number 4, the making of global world. We were discussing about the late 19th century colonialism, but before that we discussed about the technology in the trade in making the society global, or the trade global or economic society. We have seen about how people were migrating, and then the perishable items now can be transferred to longer distances because refrigeration, that is the technology of cooling things or refrigerating the ships, and this can be sent from one place to another. That is mainly those items which are perishable like meat, butter, eggs, that can be sent for a longer distance. Late 19th century colonialism, here as we say that trade actually flourished and markets expanded in the late 19th century. That is, the trade was going on, and the whole society was going global. But it is not all goody. It has darker side also. That is, there are various parts of the world, they lost their freedom and livelihood just because they were having, say, vast land, they were having minerals. They lost the freedoms and livelihoods. Just see, this is the map of Africa, and here is the border. If you see this border, these are somewhat straight lines, like someone has used a scale and just made a line between two different big countries. These are the lines. See, these are straight lines like this. And was it done like that? Means drawn using a ruler or a scale? Actually, yes. When these powers, colonial powers or European powers, they came to Africa, they were fighting for the land. So finally, these all big European powers, they sat or met in Berlin in 1885, and they just like a piece of cake, they carved out Africa, or you can say distributed Africa between them. For that, they just used this ruler line. Britain and France, they added to what they have. Now Belgium and Germany, see, Belgium and Germany. Belgium, this area is Belgian, this yellow area is British, and this is French. These areas are quite large. As far as France and Britain were concerned, they were having a large area. After that, you see, Belgium and Germany also came up. And then US came, United States. It took the colonies from Spain in 1890. So it also became a colonial power. So what this colonialism add to the destruction of economy and livelihood of colonized people? Let us have a look there. Rinderpest. This is a disease. Rinderpest is a disease which kills the cattle or the livestock. Here is a picture of transport to the Transvaal gold mines. We'll talk about that in a short while. So in Africa, there was a disease in 1890s. This disease, Rinderpest, it spread like fire. So how did it came into this? The people, the colonial people, they were in the Africa, and the cattle, or you can say the germs or disease, it came from Asia. The livestock came from Asia, which was already diseased, and then it spread all over the Africa. The main point is the Africans, they didn't work. They were totally dependent on their livestock. That is, they were just the livelihood of these Africans were only on their livestock and the small cultivation they do. They don't do salary, they don't do any wage, they don't understand that also. Okay. Now Europeans, as I just said, that they came to Africa because of the vast land and minerals, and they wanted these people, that these African natives, to come and work for plantation and mines, because they wanted to produce crops and minerals for what? For export to the Europe. But they have a problem. The problem was the natives, they don't know the job, or they don't know means they don't want to work, because they have never learned that they have livestock and their life was quite easy. How do these Europeans then work for? Because the rescue came as rinderpest. Well, it's not intentional that rinderpest was, as I'm saying, that it has not been introduced by the Europeans, but it is just a blessing in disguise for them. This disease came, and almost 90% of the cattle, 90% of the livestock died all over Africa. So now the thing is, as I said, rinderpest, the devastating cattle disease, this came into their rescue. That means the colonial people rescue. That is now, as I said, 90% of the cattle died. So let me just add it here. 90% of the cattle died because of the rinderpest. And as I said, to feed Italian soldiers, this disease or this infected cattle came from Asia. And when the infected cattle entered the Africa, this disease spread all over. 90% were destroyed, cattle were destroyed, 10% was remaining. So these colonial people, they took control of this 10%. And now these Africans, they only know small cultivation and livestock or cattle. They only know about them. They eat them, they get their milk, etc. from them only. But when all the livestock has gone, or cattle has gone, they have nothing to do. So now they are forced to work for the Europeans in mines and in plantation. So this is how the people started working. There is one more thing of indentured labor, migration from India. So first let me tell you the brief here, then we'll go to the detail. What is the meaning of indentured labor? Indentured labor, it means bonded labor under contract. There is a contract between two parties, that is the labor and the agent, to work for an employer for a specific amount of time, normally 5 years. And this brought higher income for some and poverty for others. So what were the cause of migration? As we'll see here just now, all these we are going to discuss. So what are the causes of indentured workers? See, most of the indentured labor from India came from the present day region of eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, central India and Tamil Nadu. So these regions of India experienced many social changes, like the cottage industry decline, land rents rose, and lands were cleared for mines and plantation. So in 19th century, indenture described as a new system of slavery. And there, if you see, there is a intermixing of the tradition. Jose, a carnival in Trinidad, that is for Muharram, when all the workers of all the races and religions, they join in celebration to celebrate it. So let us go into the detail now. So indentured labor, the labor taken from India and other countries to some other place for work, and they have a contract. That is, you have to work for this many years and you have to come back to your country. So in 19th century, hundreds of thousands of Indian and Chinese laborers, they went to work on plantation, in mines, to make road, railway. In other part of the world, there were different construction projects also, and they were probably they were having a proper contract, and they were probably misguided. That is, they are being told that you have a contract, you have to go into that country, work for 5 years, and then you have to come back. You may be able to come back. As I said, in India, these mostly workers were from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, central India and dry district of Tamil Nadu. And the reason why they actually agreed or wanted to migrate or go to other place, because in the mid 19th century, cottage industry declined, the land rents rose, lands were cleared of mines and plantation, so they become more and more poorer. So in order, they were not able to pay their rents, and they were indebted. So that is why they were forced, or there is no other way just to migrate in search of work. So the main destination was the Caribbean islands, that is mainly Trinidad, Guyana and Suriname, Mauritius and Fiji. And the Tamil migrants, they went to their means closer places like Ceylon and Malaya. And the Assam indentured laborers were also sent to tea plantation gardens in Assam. Here is a picture of indentured laborers in cocoa plant in Trinidad. So as I said, recruitment was done by agent. They used to tell them that you will be, we will be giving you such an opportunity, you will be away from your poverty and oppression, and then they give them false information, that is, what is their final destination, what will be the mode of travel, nature of work, and living and working condition. But as they were also not told that you have to go on a long sea voyage. Sometimes some would even forcibly abduct these migrants who are less willing. So 19th century, this indentured labor was described as a new system of slavery. At that time, it was called as a new Nai Das Pratha, new system of slavery. When these people arrive at plantation, they find that whatever has been told to them by the agents is not the way it was being told. It is totally different. The conditions are harsh. They have just few legal rights. But still, people stayed there. They blended with the cultural form, expression, and if you see Trinidad, the annual Muharram procession was transformed into a writer's carnival called Hosei. Hosei means Muharram for Imam Hussain Sahab, in which workers of all races and religions, they joined, which are mostly the indentured labor. And there is one more protest religion of Rastafarianism. This is made famous by Jamaican reggae star Bob Marley, and this also shows close link between Indian migrants to the Caribbean. There is one more chutney music which is very popular in Trinidad and Guyana, and this is very near to the Uttar Pradesh Bhojpuri music. You can hear that tune and that music there. So this is how they intermingled. And even if you see the players, the West Indian players like Shiv Narayan Chandrapal and Ram Naresh Sarwan and Bishu and Rampal, the fast bowler, they all have they are offsprings of the people who were sent as the indentured laborers. One more name I have to take. He is V.S. Naipaul. This V.S. Naipaul, sir, he has written in his novels about what was happening to this indentured labor at that time. That is the capture these because they were thought as being coolies. These indentured labor, they were not very at that time people were not very linked with them. That is, they have a different culture. Indentured laborers are just thought as a coolies. So Naipaul, he experienced that. He actually wrote it in the novels. These are the names I was telling you: Shiv Narayan Chandrapal and Ram Naresh Sarwan. These are people of Indian name. But how West Indies have them? Just because you can say their forefathers might have gone as indentured laborers. So here is a form of an indentured labor. This is every detail is being shown here. What about the Indian entrepreneurs abroad? See, Indians as a banker, Indian as an entrepreneur is always good from the ancient times to today's time. So Indian traders, they followed the European colonizers into Africa, and then also they went beyond the European companies, European colonies. They created, or they made the emporium, established the emporium at busy port worldwide, and they were selling the local and important curios to the tourists. This is how the entrepreneurs abroad also, because people, Indians were very easy for going outside and working. So this is how this happened for entrepreneurs abroad. When it comes to Indian trade, colonialism and the global system, fine cottons, India's fine cotton, as you know, that it was exported to Europe. But with industrialization, British cotton, it expanded. And those industrialists, they pressurized the government that you should not get this cotton from India or anywhere else. That is, restrict the cotton imports. That is, the Indian cotton export decline. Indian cotton export decline. Then from the early 19th century, the British manufacturers, they also began to seek overseas market for their cloth. And because now India has been excluded from the export, they also faced they also put the tariff barriers. So India faced stiff competition now in the international market. That is the cotton. There was a sharp decline in the cotton textiles. If you see the export figures, from 30% around 1800 to 15% in 1885, and in 70 years, it just came to 3%. Then what happened? What happened to Indian export then? See, this is not what it seems like this. As these exports were declining, the export of raw materials was increasing. Please understand, when the exports of this cotton was declining, the raw material was increasing. The export of raw material was increasing. Between 1812 to 1871, the share of raw cotton export rose from 5% to 35%. So the raw material was going, and even the indigo was going. So here are some pictures of East India Company House. This came first to India as the traders, and then you know what happened. This is a distance view of Surat. You can say port. It was a very busy port that time. So as I was telling you, indigo, it was, in the export, it was having a major role, a major part. So as we also talked about the triangular trade, that is, the opium is the UK or Britishers, they take opium from India, they send it to China, and from China they get tea. So this was also happening. But over the 19th century, as we see, British manufacturers, they just flooded Indian market. Food grain, raw materials, exports from India to Britain and the rest of the world, it also increased. But the value of British exports to India was quite higher than the British imports from India. So Britain now had a trade surplus. That is, Britain had a trade surplus with India. That is, Britain was making quite a money from India, but in a trade we always see that Britain was trading with other countries also. So it might be that Britain might be losing somewhere, and the trade surplus which or the extra money or extra profit which Britain was gaining, it was settlement against those countries where it was losing. I hope you got the idea. So these are the, they were doing this extra money or home charges for some interest payments on India's external debt, pensions of Indian officials in British, like this. So this is the trade routes of India, showing that these important Indian ports, Surat, Goa, Masulipattnam, Madras or Chennai right now. So these are the trade routes that linked India to the world at the end of 17th century. If you see, this is the sea route in blue arrow, and this dotted red is the land, you can say the land route. So this is one more part of our discussion. We'll be taking one more discussion shortly. Till then, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.